All right. Ms. Beck, you ready? Okay. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the July 11th, 2024 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair this year. Joining me today is Commissioner Aaron Mays. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Bill Rippon.
Good morning.
We have Ms. Beck as our county clerk. Good morning. And Rich Eckert as our county counselor.
Good morning.
So we do have at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to have a presentation. Ms. Beck, can you kick us off?
Yes, fair announcement, Shawnee County 4-H Fair King and Queen.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Weems. I'm the Shawnee County 4-H Extension Agent, and I have with me the Shawnee County Fair King and Queen, Carl Russell and Caitlin Jackson. They've been putting in a lot of work to gather scholarship money for our new King and Queen and put on their program, and they would like to talk to you guys a little bit about the events going on at the Shawnee County Fair.
Great.
Hello, like she said, we are this year's King and Queen for the fair, and our fair is just around the corner. Like seriously, it's 2 weeks away. We're busy, busy, busy. But we have a lot of events that we'd like to invite all of you to. So on Sunday of the fair, which is July 27th, we have our pancake feed that runs from 7 to 12 a.m. We have our...
Got my tickets
Yes.
ready?
Get those tickets. I believe you can get them at the door too, though, so $5. Or you can get them from Carl. But yes, so we have that in the morning on Saturday. We also have a hot pickle eating contest for older people. You got to be over 18 for that one. That one runs from 11, I believe, to 11:45. We have a younger kids pickle eating contest too that starts like right after that. And then we also have a pedal tractor pull for young kids. It starts, registration opens at 1 that Saturday. So there's lots of events that day. And I believe Carl can tell you a bit more about some of the livestock events we have if you guys are interested in that.
So a lot of people think what 4-H is about is just the livestock kind of stuff. And I do beef cattle. I used to do steer, or I still do steers. I used to do pigs and sheep, but all the 4-Hers showed those animals along with goats, dairy goats, dairy cattle. Chickens are in the inside area a lot, but the swine show is the first livestock show that we have at the fair. That's on Thursday night at 6. And then Friday morning is going to be the goats and sheep shows. And then Friday night at 5 is when they start the bucket calf and beef shows. And then on Saturday night, they have the auction for all the market animals like the market pigs, market sheep and goats, and then obviously market beef that I'll be selling 2 of my steers. A lot of the 4-Hers sell whatever they had shown earlier at the fair, and it's a good profit to let them figure out how kind of farming in the real world is and kind of get some money to save up for college for me, at least.
So like he said, there is a profit involved for some of the 4-Hers. A lot of 4-Hers get premiums from their projects, but the biggest thing is the support from our community. In supporting us, you support kids that are being creative, kids that are learning a lot of life skills such as cooking, sewing, raising cattle. But these kids are learning a lot of leadership too. So in supporting 4-H, you are supporting people who are going to bring industry and agriculture back into our communities. You're going to support kids that are going to have quality work ethic. So whether your support comes from donations or just spending time at the fair talking to 4-Hers, it really means a lot, especially for our county, our community, and Kansas as a whole. So please come down to the fair as the representatives of the Shawnee County Fair. We invite everybody and your family to any part of the fair, and we'd love to see you all there.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Now, before you guys get away, when you talked to us a little bit about, you talked about college. Do you have college plans? Do you have thinking about what college you're wanting to go to? Have you narrowed it down?
Yeah, I just graduated from Seaman, and I'm going to Washburn next year to major in actuarial science.
Great.
And I will graduate this next year. I'm going into my senior year at Washburn Rule. I'm going to go to K-State to study geophysics.
Great. Now,
Go Cats!
Sounds like you might have a place at Shawnee County Public Works when you get done.
you know, I think that 4-H, it cannot be understated. I was a 10-year 4-H'er. I mean, you never know, you might wind up as a county commissioner someday. Maybe better. And now, the hot pickle contest, that sounds dangerous, but you know, if you had adult tractor puddle car pull, I would challenge Commissioner Rippon to a pedal pull. So when you get the adult pedal pull going, I'm going to challenge Commissioner Rippon to a pedal pull.
How many pickles are we talking about?
It's like a plate of pickles. I believe
Oh.
it's like 10-ish on each. They're horseradish pickles, I believe. So, my brother said they were pretty good last year. So,
Okay,
and he doesn't like pickles. So.
all
All
right.
right. Thank you all for being here, and then congratulations and continue to hard work for the next 2 weeks. Get your projects ready. So,
Thank you.
do we want to do a quick photo?
See, I was a hog farmer and I ended up in the county.
Thank you, guys. Good luck. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks for being here.
All right, Ms. Beck, we're off to a good start. Let's
Yeah, that was great.
continue it.
Next item is consent agenda.
There is a number of items on the consent agenda. I do need to pull or make special note of one item under item U, which is the Shawnee County Extension Council's 2025 budget. We do take that up separately, or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So we'll need to take up U as a separate item. But I would move to approve the remainder of the items on the consent
Are
agenda.
you wanting to do that today?
Yes, well, we will need
Should we make
to,
a motion to move it to a different place on the agenda first?
well, I think we can take it up under,
You can take it off and then
Yeah.
just consent item would be a discussion of
Correct.
actionable items separate. He can take it off and then you separate.
that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
It
I'll
was him,
second.
right?
All right, so motion to approve the consent agenda absent item U. Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Now if we can take up U.
Okay, item U is file Shawnee County Extension Council's 2025 budget.
Okay. And in reading of the statute, it would appear that under KSA 2-610, the Extension Office is required to file their budget on or before July the 15th of each year. So we would make a motion to acknowledge having received their budget, and so that would be the first motion.
So I'll make a motion that we acknowledge that we've received their budget.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0. Now, in an abundance of caution, to make sure that we don't accidentally approve the budget or have acknowledged approving of the budget, I'm going to make a motion that we are rejecting the budget so that it would be considered as the whole during the regular budget process. So I'll make a motion to reject the budget as received for further discussions at a later time.
Second.
Mr. Eckert?
And the reason you're doing it out of an abundance of caution is that you do have 10 days to act, and we don't have a commission meeting next Thursday. So that's why it needs to be pulled from the agenda and acted upon today.
So it is a motion to reject the budget and then have a further discussion at a later time,
Then send it back to the Extension Council.
and to send it back to the extension. Got all that, Ms. Beck?
Yes.
All right.
See?
So that is the motion. Is
All
there-
right.
is there a second?
Second.
second made by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business, A, County Clerk, number 1, consider 2 voucher payments, 2 sets of voucher payments.
Okay, first one that I'm gonna go over is July 3rd, which is $4,347,332.62. 3 items to note on there. Under federal grant, $110,700 to Reassurance Solutions is for the medical sensors at the jail. Under facilities management, $395,447 is to Cindy and Company. That's for courthouse renovations, and that is 85% complete now. And then under infrastructure, $115,509.46 to Free State Electric Cooperative. That is for relocation of utilities for the 29th and Auburn Road project at the middle school. And then also, the other voucher report is $3,812,684.19. One item to point out on there, under bridge project, $229,006.67 to King Construction. That is for the South Topeka Boulevard Bridge replacement. Other than that, I don't have any questions or concerns, and would move approval of both voucher reports.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays to approve, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Planning Department, number 1, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2024-47, a conditional use permit to establish a bed and breakfast home on property zoned RR1 Residential Reserve District and located at 2739 Southeast 41st Street in Topeka Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Fedani, Director of the Planning Department. As mentioned, we have a public hearing for conditional use permit 2402. This one is to request a bed and breakfast on property here at Southeast 41st Street in Topeka Township. It's located right to the west of Lake Shawnee, on the corner across the street from the tennis courts, dog park area, just to put it in perspective. It's a 1.3 acre parcel. The definition of bed and breakfast home, it's a private owner-occupied single-family dwelling where no more than 4 guest rooms are provided for overnight paying guests for not more than 7 consecutive nights. The dwelling shall be the primary residence of the owner, and no employees would be permitted other than permanent residents within the dwelling. A bed and breakfast home is allowed within the RR, or Residential Reserve District, as long as there's an approval of a conditional use permit. It must be ancillary or secondary to the use as a primary residence, and the exterior of the home has to remain the same as what it is. No appearance as a business can be done. It can't be used for social events, so no weddings, parties. It's not an event center, and it can only be used for the short-term overnight stays. In this situation, the guests are going to be limited to 4 at a time, and that has to do with the size of the septic that this one is on. It has very limited impact to the neighbors, and as you'll see here in the maps, it has some distance from each of the neighbors, and because of the location next to the lake and park grounds, it really she doesn't have a whole lot of neighbors surrounding her. She has plenty of parking on the property for extra vehicles, and no street side parking is going to be allowed. So as you can see here, as I mentioned, the property is right next to the lake, the walking trails. Not far away are the softball fields, and then the tennis courts and dog park right here. The benefit of this location is based on the fact that it is right here next to Lake Shawnee, and a lot of the guests that are staying there or have stayed there have utilized those services, weddings, sporting events. And I say guests that have stayed there. Ms. Rice did have an Airbnb operating, and she didn't realize that she needed a permit. we found out about it and we contacted her, and she immediately started the process to go through the conditional use process so that she could continue her bed and breakfast home. These are the neighbors within 1,000 feet of the property. We sent out those letters, and we did get contacted from one neighbor, but it just so happens that he was contacting me about something else, and then he mentioned that he wanted to take note that he didn't have any issues with it and hoped that she was able to succeed. No one appeared at the public hearing to oppose the matter. The public hearing was held on Monday, June 10, and the action of the Planning Commission was to approve it 4-0. I will point out that we only had 4 commissioners there that day. 2 of them were absent, and we did have a vacancy at the time, but it was passed unanimously based on the quorum that was present. There are conditions in regards to the approval that would be recommended. Has to do with right-of-way, making sure that she's complying with all of the requirements as set forth in the Shawnee County zoning regulations, following the business plan that she submitted with her application, limiting the guests to 4 based on the septic size, and those are all laid out within the resolution and within my staff report. I have no other comments unless you have questions.
Any questions for Ms. Thadani regarding this applicant?
No?
Okay.
I make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing by Commissioner Mays. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. We are now in a public hearing on this item. Are there any persons wishing to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing none, are there any persons wanting to speak in favor of this item?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Hutton. I am a lawyer here in town. I represent Roberta Rice, who's standing next to me, who is the proponent of this application. I will be very, very brief. I know you have a full meeting this morning, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that we were here to answer any questions you might have. I would also note that we have addressed the Golden versus City of Overland Park factors in our application under Statement of Operations, so those are in there if you need to review those or have any questions about those. But otherwise, we think it's a great project. In fact, the only contact that she's had from her neighbors, Roberta's had from her neighbors, have been positive. So I think it's a good addition to Lake Shawnee and Shawnee County. So, any questions?
Questions?
No.
Roberta, I just note from the packet, just kind of the history of your home and this residence. It was built as by the WPA when the lake was built. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the 4th owner, and it was built in 1936.
So it has quite the history to it. And it was originally built for the lake superintendent.
Correct.
Wow. So again, quite a history of Shawnee County, and thank you for maintaining that and so and preserving that for our history and heritage. So are there any other questions for Ms. Rice? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other persons wanting to speak in favor of this applicant? Not seeing any. Pleasure of the commission.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and approve the resolution.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays. Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B2, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2024-48 to amend the district zoning classification from C2 Commercial District to RR1 Residential Reserve District on property located 1/2 mile south of 69th Street and Southeast Barrington Road in Williamsport Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shawnee Thadani, Director of the Shawnee County Planning Department. So this one is a down zoning, which we don't see quite as frequently as you might see for an up zoning. I would point out that the original case, because this is an amendment to a case, the original one was done in 1977. So what had happened in 1977 is the owner of the property requested to change the zoning from agricultural to commercial so that he could operate an antique and furniture repair shop. This is located in or near what I would call the Berryton town area. It's located just south of the area where the post office is, not far away from the Berryton United Methodist Church. So it's in an area where at the time and even now to this day, really commercial could be considered, but it actually hasn't been used in a commercial manner for many years. The situation here is Mr. Scott, Robert Scott, has his dad here, and they have deeded off 3 acres of land so that his dad could build a house. And once we started looking at it, we realized that an area of this property was zoned commercially, which means that we can't put a house there. And since it wasn't being used as a commercial district, they elected to go ahead and rezone it so that he can proceed with building his house. And so that's what brings us here today. The neighborhood is a little bit of a mixed use. There's a lot of agricultural, there's residential, there's a little bit of commercial, there's a school. The Land and Trail is located just nearby. This is a picture of the area here. The part in green is notated because that's the area that's actually commercial. And what you'll notice is that it encompasses 2 properties because it has the original property plus the new 3 acres that was cut out for Mr. Scott. There's some areas to the north where there is also commercial spots, 7149 and 7151. They have an event center there, and that is also commercial. But as a whole, this is really quite residential and or agricultural. This is the property notice that we sent out. We did get a couple of phone calls, but it wasn't because people were concerned. It was more that they were confused and had questions about what was going on. And once they realized that it wasn't going to have any impact on them, then they were satisfied. So we had no concerns. We did send out 22 letters. No one appeared at the public hearing to oppose it, and the applicant is here today. Planning Commission action, a public hearing was heard on Monday, June 10, and the Planning Commission did vote 4-0 to approve it, and there are no conditions on this as it's a downzoning to residential rural. Residential reserve. So approval with no conditions is the staff recommendation, and I have no other comments unless you have specific questions.
Any questions for Mr. Donnie? Yes.
Does this is only the zoning, this is not gonna have anything to do with the actual construction of the house? I assume that's
Nope.
a separate permitting process? Or?
Correct. So they've already actually applied for their building permit, and we have that in our office, but we're just waiting for this final action so that we can move forward and approve that.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Are there any any individuals wanting to speak in opposition to this proposal? Seeing none, is there anybody wanting to speak in favor of this proposal? Good. All right. Not seeing any. Pleasure of the commission at this time.
I would move that we end the public hearing and approve this, this resolution.
Motion made by
Second.
Commissioner Rippon,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item. Thank you very much.
Item B3, public hearing and consider approval of resolution 2024-49 to amend the district zoning classification from RR1 Residential Reserve District to PUD Planned Unit Development and M1 Two-Family Dwelling District on property located 1,000 feet north of the intersection of Northwest Rochester Road and Northwest Page Lane in Soldier Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Fedani, Director of the Planning Department. Okay, so what we have in front of you today is another rezoning case. This one is going from RR1 to PUD, Planned Unit Development, and it also includes an underlying zoning of M1, Two-Family Dwelling District. And I will explain that a little bit here in just a minute, but I also want to point out that my request on this one's going to be a little bit different than the last two, and I want to be upfront about that right off the bat. So as you listen to the proposal and the information, you can be aware of how my proposal is gonna be. And my request at this point is that I would ask that you send it back to the Planning Commission for some additional reconsideration of some changes that are being proposed to the plan. And so as we go through this, I would introduce that. I wanted the public who are all here today to be aware of that as I get started, and to be very upfront and honest about the proposal. Okay, so in this case, Shawnee County zoning regulations allow a district called a planned unit development district. This is a form of development that is characterized by using a unified site plan or a site design. What that means is it has a master plan that gets put into place through this process, and that master plan has to be followed as they develop the property and as they move forward. That master plan can set forth the various zoning. It set forth requirements for things like the location of the septic or the lagoon or the landscaping, whether or not there's houses or businesses. It can restrict things, it can require things. That site plan or the master plan is what this development actually follows. Anytime you have that master plan, if there are proposed amendments to them, they have to be applied for through the planning department. A minor amendment, which is just minor changes to the site plan or things that are maybe clerical or inconsequential, can be done by the planning director, but anything else has to go back to the planning commission. So even once it's approved today, that master plan sets forth the plan for the future, and then if they want to amend that plan, they have to come back to me and make a request, and then we determine if it can be done as a minor or a major amendment. Part of the nice thing about PUDs is that you can actually have multiple zones or underlying zones within that PUD. A lot of times what you'll see with a PUD is you may have an area that's considered commercial, and then next to that you have an area that's considered O&I, and then you have an area maybe that's residential or M2. It allows a community type feel and to have a little neighborhood all within one development. Another reason we use these is to have what would be considered something like a subdivision, where you have an entire living area within that one PUD. It can all be owned by one owner. Multiple houses can fall on that one parcel. This differs from most of the residential zones within Shawnee County because our rules set forth that you can only have one house per lot. So in this case, you can have multiple because it's a planned unit development and we have that master plan set forth. All PUDs have underlying zoning. The PUD is what I call the top layer because that's the overriding plan, and then all the other zones underneath are the underlying zones that can fall within that PUD. They do utilize private streets. So when roads are put into place within a PUD, they're identified as private, and the maintenance of those happen by the PUD. Either there's an HOA covenants that are set up that dictate what exactly happens and how that's maintained, but it is not dedicated to the public for a road to be taken care of by a township or by Shawnee County. So the road maintenance in this case is all under the owner that owns the property. This project in particular falls within the 3-mile radius of the city of Topeka, and that's very important because in that situation, it has to be platted with the city. There are changes that are being made to the parcel itself, and so with city requirements, it does require that they go to the city and have a plat. In this situation, that process is happening concurrently, so they've applied for their plat, they've been working with the city, we've had multiple meetings with them in regards to the requirements of the plat. It has not been approved because we're still going back and forth on the changes, and they have requested some changes with the city at this time. Development within this 3-mile area is typically limited to what we call the 80-20 rule. What that means is that the city only allows them to develop 20% of the total acreage. And that happens only within this 3-mile area. So the owner actually owns like 35 acres here, but he's only developing 7 because that's the 20% that he's allowed to develop by the city of Topeka. I will mention that they have reached out to the city and requested that they be allowed to add a couple of acres, and I will go into more detail about why that is in the future. The remainder of the property has to remain RR1, so we're only rezoning the portion that he's asking to change, which is that 7 acres. The land has historically been used as agricultural, but I would like to specifically point out that it is not limited to agriculture. This is in the RR zone, and there are a lot of different uses that can occur within the RR zone as permitted uses. There are a lot of uses that can be done with provisions or conditional use permit. So keeping this as ag land is probably not going to happen based on the fact that the owner who owns it would like to develop it in some manner. The specific plans of this project are duplexes. He has proposed 15 duplexes, so a total of 30 units. They would be 3-bedroom and 2-bath per unit. They are going to be rentals, and those are going to be maintained by a management company. The option here to sell those is really not probably ever going to happen, because if they were to be sold off, the parcel would have to be platted and divided up, and then each of those plats would have to meet specific setbacks and septics for each particular parcel, because those have to all fall within a platted lot. And so the chances are that these will be sold off independently is very unlikely. It would make the project nearly impossible to happen. The private street that would be cared for will be managed by a company. Landscaping and mowing will also be managed by a company. Construction is planned to occur in phases, with the start of the wastewater and storm retention first with a couple of houses, and then they will proceed forward with additional houses after that. The original plan was to do a wastewater lagoon, and again, I will go into a little bit more detail about that here in the future, but that was the original plan. They would be required to have proper vegetation and screening to make it look nice and to protect it from the surrounding neighborhood and make it blend in as the other neighbors have done. And then they would have stormwater detention ponds. This is a map of the area. The box in red is the area that had been proposed would be the plan for the duplexes. As you can note, there's quite a bit of density in regards to the houses here. There are a lot of 3-acre, 5-acre, even bigger 20-acre lots. There are some people that own multiple agricultural lots within here that do farming and cattle. There are some much smaller parcels as well, and there are some subdivisions in the area not far away. It is on Rochester Road. There are the Seaman High School and Middle School not that far away, as well as just south down on Rochester Road, commercial development with Walmart, Dillon's, all of those things. This is the property 1,000-foot notification, so we sent out these letters. At first, we didn't really get much comment back. We had a couple of phone calls with questions about what was happening and what this meant. But shortly before the public hearing, we actually got petitions filed in opposition. Originally, there were 100 petitions that were turned in, or approximately 100 that were turned into my office. Then once we showed up to the public hearing, about an additional 100 were turned in, so for about a total of 200. We didn't get a whole lot of phone calls and emails on it, as I mentioned, but there is a lot of opposition in regards to this project. This is the site plan that was originally proposed. It falls within that 7 acres. It shows the layout of the homes. The homes would all be on the northern side, and then on the southern side is where there would be stormwater detention, and then the lagoon. The lagoon is in the center of that southern portion. It shows one box, but it would actually have to be a couple of cells just based on requirements. The lagoon itself would have to be approved by KDHE because it's large enough and it sustains enough residential use that it is not something that can be permitted through our Shawnee County Environmental Health. It would have to be through the state of Kansas. I had included this in my original PowerPoint because I wanted to point out that this is not unusual for lagoons to take place in this area. All of the schools in the surrounding area have multiple lagoons. There's actually also, and this was brought up at the meeting about whether or not there were other residential neighborhoods that had lagoons, and I was not at the time aware of whether or not that was the case. But there are actually a couple of residential neighborhoods that are serviced by lagoons, and one of those in particular is one of the county sewer districts that the lagoon supports that sewer district, and it's located just to the east and north a little bit of this project, really not that far away at all. There is another project that is similar in nature to the one that we're talking about today, and it's called Northern Sky. It's located off of Northwest Topeka Boulevard. It is not an identical project, but it is similar to what he is wanting to do, and it is what he came in and based this off of originally. His is a little bit different in the sense that his original proposal was for a lagoon, more houses, the shape of it, the location of it. So yes, there are differences, but in the grand scheme of things, it is similar because it's multifamily. It's located right near the same location that this one is at. Okay, so 36 letters were sent to property owners within 1,000 feet. I mentioned the petitions. 28 people appeared and spoke in opposition at the public hearing. The public hearing was held on Monday, June 10. My recommendation to the Planning Commission was for approval. I found that it met the golden factors. You can see that in my staff report. I went through each of those factors one by one and why I felt that it met with the golden factors in regards to this specific plan. However, that being said, based on the information that was presented to them, the Planning Commission did vote to deny this. So that was in contradiction to my recommendation. They voted 4-0, again with 2 people being absent and 1 vacancy. Mostly the comment from the Planning Commission was that they had concerns about the lagoon. They had concerns about the density of the project, and with the public input that they were receiving, they weren't comfortable moving forward approving it. They did not ask for additional information or ask for it to be reconsidered at another hearing with additional information. They just denied it. After that point, we did receive protest petitions, and if you guys recall, according to statute 192960, protest petitions can be filed with the county clerk within 14 days after the conclusion of a public hearing. We did receive 24 protest petitions timely filed. However, I did remove 5 of them for deficiencies. I spoke with the county counselor's office in regards to this, and we noted that we would reconsider those 5 petitions if the 20% threshold was not met. However, the total protest area, there were 59.6% of the area within the 1,000 feet were protesting. So regardless of whether we counted the 19 or the 24, they clearly met that 20% threshold, and so we didn't go back and reconsider the 5 petitions that I had removed for deficiencies. What that means for you is that to approve this project, you would have to vote 3-0. It cannot be a majority vote of 2-1. It would have to be a unanimous vote of 3-0. Now, that being said, after the Planning Commission meeting, I was contacted by the applicant and his consultant, and he had heard the concerns. He listened to all of them. He had a lot of questions about how he could make changes, what he could do to improve the plan, how he could satisfy the concerns of the neighbors. And so at that point, the applicant and his consultant begun revising the plans. The first thing he did was eliminate the wastewater lagoon. So the lagoon is no longer going to be an option for him. He has gone to environmental health. He's hired consultants. He's hired professionals to come in and figure out how it is that he can make this happen with septics. They've contacted the city to allow for some additional acreage. As I mentioned originally, this had the 80-20 rule. However, he's asking for a little bit of latitude with the city to add some additional acres to make sure that those laterals and the septic could fit within the project. And that was important, not to add homes, but to add the laterals to make sure that that lagoon could be eliminated. He's also changed the layout of the homes. Instead of it stretching along Rochester Road, he's proposing that it actually go from Rochester Road to the west so that it moves away from the road and the homes are further back from the road. He's also planning to eliminate one entrance because part of the concern with traffic and there being 2 entrances and a lot of people coming in and out, he felt that having just one entrance on and off of Rochester Road would help that situation. The Those plans and revisions are not yet ready for review. I've seen some of them, but they have not been officially submitted because it takes a lot of time to put this together. I have asked that if this does get reverted back to the Planning Commission, that we not hear that until September, and that would mean he would be required to get us official plans at the end of July so that we can go back through our review process. I can send it back out to all of the reviewing entities so that they can see it with a fresh set of eyes. And then it would go at that point back to the Planning Commission, and I would request that another public hearing be held. The applicant would like those revisions to be considered instead of the plan that is in front of you today. I know that you have two options, and those would be A, that you go ahead and conduct the public hearing today and take action on the resolution that has been presented, which would mean you would have to consider the specific proposal in front of you. You would have to approve it 3-0 if you approved it, or it could be denied by any vote whatsoever. The second option would be to send it back to the Planning Commission with instructions to hold a second public hearing in regards to the modifications and revisions at the September 9, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. My request and my recommendation at this point is different than my recommendation of the staff report, and that would be that you do send it back to the Planning Commission. Based on the fact that the plans have significantly changed, I don't feel like the plan in front of you is what the proposal is any longer. I could have asked that this go straight back to the Planning Commission without even setting it in front of you. However, because there has been such public input, there was the protest petition, we wanted to ensure due process. We wanted them to appear today and hear this plan and understand that if it was going back to the commission, why it was that that was going to happen. You do have this authority pursuant to statute. So that would be my proposal today. If you have any questions, please let me know.
If we were to take option A and take it up today, and if it did not have unanimous proposed favor, at that point, it would be denied.
Correct.
And then the applicant, could they resubmit a new application?
They can submit a new application, but they have a waiting period of 1 year, unless the Planning Commission, if they go to the Planning Commission and ask that that be waived, the Planning Commission does have the authority to waive that. But as a whole, the way our regulations are written is that there is a 1 year waiting period before it could be reconsidered.
I know that I've received a lot of contact and a lot of communication from the residents of the neighborhood. The concerns vary from the traffic count, population density. I think there probably would need to be a traffic study done by our Public Works Department on Rochester Road. Rochester Road is set to be a major project beginning in 2025 for expansion of Rochester Road from really the high school, 46th Street, down to the Walmart Dillon's area. And so that's going to be a major construction project for Shawnee County coming up. But we also have to look at, I've heard concerns about safety and health of the lagoons, just overall, just a lot of concerns from the neighbors about this. And so I would tell you that if this was to come to A, I'm very skeptical of it in its current form. Now, if he was to take it back to the Planning Commission and revise it, I do want to make sure that I've been on record in saying I support growth in Shawnee County. I support having residences built in Shawnee County. I don't want to limit us to have new residents come to Shawnee County because we need residents for the tax base to grow and for us to be all have employees and grow as a community. But in its current form, I don't think it meets with the scope of the neighborhood. So if Mr. Palmer was to take this back and rework this, I'm not sure. And again, 90, you're talking about a potential of 90 new residents. I mean, if it's a 3-bedroom, 30 houses, at a minimum, you're talking about 90 new people. So just kind of the concern on the 7 acres. Just as to the 7 acres, and just to clarify, the reason he can only develop 7 out of the 35 acres is because it falls within the 3-mile radius of the city of Topeka.
Correct.
And so even though we've got a number of acres that are just sitting vacant, he can only develop on those 7 acres.
Correct.
On those areas that are not developed, is he able to and I'm just talking here, is he able to add other amenities? If he wanted to put in pickleball courts, pickleball is very popular. I don't know why, but it is. But if he wanted to put pickleball courts on that vacant area, is that something that he would be allowed to do?
Not likely. The city is pretty particular in the fact that when you're talking about development, they really want it to remain open. He could potentially put one single-family residence back there with a long driveway and going all to the back. He could farm it. He could do other things that are, allowed within the residential area. But for development of another nature, probably not. We would have to go back to the city. This is where, within this area, there's a lot of discussion between my office and the city office about what exactly can happen. And I get told on a pretty frequent basis that certain development cannot happen because it doesn't meet with the land use growth management plan of the city of Topeka. If that management plan were to ever change, then the development of the remainder of that could happen at any number of methods. But if it doesn't fall within a request that can happen within RR, it would have to come back to us for either a conditional use permit, which pickleball courts would require a conditional use permit anyways because it's an outdoor recreational field of sorts. And so those would have to come back to me for a public hearing anyways. So a lot of the uses in that remainder, it's very limited.
Okay. While we have this map up, down at the bottom, we have a series of numbers, 8 through 14. And this is an area that has already been subdivided.
Correct.
And so if the applicant wanted to make these single-family dwellings, would he be able to do that on his parcels and so make a subdivision?
Well, so he has a couple of options in regards to that. He could put, as you can see, his original plan, the way it is now, has two, I think they're like 3 acre lots. Yeah, 3 acre lots with 200 feet of frontage. Those two lots are buildable lots because they've been in existence since, I believe, like the 90s. The remainder of that is currently, could have a house on it. So you could have the potential of 3 houses without coming to me, without doing anything other than requesting a building permit because they are all buildable lots. If he wanted to do something in a more dense location like a subdivision, that has to be platted through the city of Topeka. So again, he would be limited to that 80-20 rule. And then once we started laying out the parcels to determine what that plat would look like, it would determine the size that they could be, whether or not they could have laterals or what could fit on there. So there is the potential for a more dense subdivision. I will point out that the smaller parcels there are really tiny and they're served, I would assume, by septic, and they are not what we would look for at this stage for a residential parcel. Really, we like to see something more along the lines of 1.5 acres to 2 acres to support the size of a septic system, to make sure it fits all the setbacks. Those smaller ones are old and we don't do it like that anymore.
Okay. If we could go to the other map picture that you have where you were looking at the Seaman High School that had, there we go,
Yep.
right there. The one that you've circled off of North Topeka Boulevard, and you said that the applicant had based his designs on this plan.
Correct.
Do you have information on how long ago that had been built or how long it's been in existence?
2007.
Okay.
It happened in 2007, and so I will notate one thing that you can point out, and one of the questions I had is, how did Northern Sky get to develop at this density if the rule is 80-20? And the answer to that is that the 80-20 land use growth management plan from the city of Topeka took effect in March of 2015. And so this happened before that 80-20 rule went into place.
Okay.
This parcel had historically been an auto salvage dump yard, and the owner of it, the new owner of it, came in and wanted to clean it up and put these houses on. And so what you can see is there are 6 fourplexes. So it's actually more than a duplex. It's a multifamily home that includes more than 2 family homes. There's 6 of them, and it has, I believe, a hammerhead turnaround at the end of it. And then you look at the big empty space behind it and you're like, gosh, why didn't they just expand all of that and build all the way back? Well, the answer to that is because that is where the laterals are at. That entire area to the backside of that is all laterals. And so this cannot develop any more than it already has. There was supposed to be on the little parcel just north of this, as a part of this same PUD, it was supposed to be an assisted living home, and that was also going to connect to those laterals. They came back to the planning department a couple of years ago and actually modified that to where that little itty bitty parcel is gonna turn into storage units. That will probably be coming within the next year or so. We just did some minor amendments to that plan, and I anticipate that those are gonna be coming soon, and so that little parcel will turn into storage units. But, so the differences between these is that one has septic, and this one was proposed to have a lagoon. Those were fourplexes, this is gonna be duplexes. That one is 55 and plus, and I will point out that the proposal for this one is also to be 55 plus. He would like to rent this to people who no longer need a big single-family residence, and so this also promotes the fact that if we can get people out of residence and into smaller duplexes and free up other houses, that it not only creates new housing for people, but it also, you know, opens up the housing that already exists.
But at the same time, would we be able to put a restriction that it can only be 55 and plus forever?
Honestly, that is a question that I have for the county counselor's office, and if this gets sent back to the planning commission, I'm gonna have them do some research into whether or not that's a legal opportunity that we have. If we can put that limit within the PUD and the plan that it can only be rented to 55 plus, that's one option, but I just don't know legally that we have the ability to restrict it on age like that.
I mean, I'll tell you, with it being just a stone's throw from the Seaman High School, and Seaman is a very desirable educational system, it would not surprise me or shock me that there's not a need for dwellings for young families. And I know that a lot of times young families are looking for houses in the Seaman School District to move to.
Correct. I also think that putting a restriction like that, it could be a detriment to the project in the sense that if there aren't people 55 and plus to move in, it would sit empty versus being able to be filled by another family. And I don't think open vacant housing that could start depleting is what we want either, so.
All right. Other questions from the commissioners? Okay. And again, just at this point, I'm just going to say at the beginning, I'm not in favor of option A. If we do anything, option B would, just so that if we're going to flesh out what exactly we can do for development, or what Mr. Palmer is able to do development-wise, but that, just put that on. Commissioner Mays?
So, Joni, since the recommendation today is to send this back to the Planning Commission, I mean, do we need to go through the whole process today, or do we just make that motion? Do we have a hearing, or?
My recommendation would be that we not do the full public hearing, but I will defer to council on that. I think that there's so many changes that he's requesting. I would like the applicant to be able to come up and to speak to you if he so wish, or his consultant. I don't know, unless your plan is to go ahead and hear the motion that's on, or the resolution that's on today. I think that if we could avoid doing the public hearing, that would be best, but again, I would defer to council on that.
I mean, I don't think it makes sense for us to take any action on a plan that they're in the process of changing. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, so. I mean, Rich, did you have something to weigh in on, or?
No, and this has been, sending it back, that's common across the state of Kansas. I've actually done that myself in private life, where a developer understands that, you know, here are the problems that I didn't know about until we had a public hearing. And so it does happen, I wouldn't say regularly, but it is a procedure to send it back with revisions, and then to see how much that may have placated the people who are in opposition. It's part of the process.
Okay.
And I would say that we do have every anticipation of having another public hearing at the Planning Commission hearing. I will tell you that everybody here that's here in regards to this project is here to oppose it. I do not know of anybody that's here in favor of it, so we could put that out there that everybody here is in opposition. We know that because we've already had a public hearing on it. This benefit would be to take it back and for them to have another public hearing on the revisions so that we can fully vet this out before it comes to you for a final decision. My anticipation is that if you hear it today and it gets denied, it's not going away. He's gonna go do those revisions and he's gonna reapply, or he's gonna maneuver it and do some other project. It's not the end of it. He's not gonna just say, okay, well, I'm done. I tried and I didn't make it. And so the preference would be that we get it back and really fully vet it with the new information and allow the public to have that hearing again at the Planning Commission.
And I just might note the county councilor kindly slipped me a note. I said Seaman High School earlier. That's a picture of the Seaman Middle School. So just to make sure you guys don't think that I fell on my head today. I know I'm looking at a picture of the Seaman Middle School, but Seaman High School is very close to it.
It's right by
Yeah, they're
Ocean.
right next door.
Yeah, so-
I couldn't fit the full picture with Seaman High School and their lagoons on this, and so it doesn't show up on there.
I just want to make sure, I said Seaman High School, but we are looking at a picture of the Seaman Middle School. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Eckert, for pointing that out to me.
I slipped you a note so you wouldn't have to admit that, but.
Yeah. So, Commissioner Rippon?
Yeah, I'm kind of opposed to this in its present form, and I don't have a problem with sending it back. I might note that I had 11 emails come in. All of them were opposed to this project, so, yeah. I think by sending it back, we're probably saving everybody some time, actually. If we don't, you say it extends out to a year then before yeah, there's no need of doing that, I don't think, so.
With that being said, Mr. Counselor, if I could just make the motion at this time?
You can make a motion.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
At this time, I would make a motion that we send this item back to the Planning Commission for further discussion and development. The developer would be well suited to note the comments made by the commission of other concerns, as well as the concerns by the public. Also, I would hope that before it comes back before the Planning Commission, our Public Works Department is maybe able to do a traffic study and take into account the traffic count and the impact upon the roadways, and how this might impact the roads up north in Shawnee County. And then do you want a specific date that this is going to come back before the Planning Commission?
Is applicant here? Where's applicant? I would like it to say September, but if we have to do a traffic study, usually another engineering company, the applicant contracts with another engineering company to do that. And so I would like to say September, but it may be better suited for me to just send out new public notice and publish notice in the paper once we figure out that it can happen by September, because is that fine, County Councilor?
I would prefer not to set a date because.
Okay,
It's been my experience the last couple of years, everybody's busy and every timeline somebody gives is very hard to hit.
okay, so what I would do then is just ask that you defer it back to the Planning Commission, and I will work with the applicant and his consultant to ensure that we get all the information filed, and then we will do it like we're doing a whole new case where we send out notice to everybody within the 1,000 feet. We'll publish notice in the paper. We always put information on our planning website, and they always have the option of emailing to planning@snco.us or to call us at 785-251-5410 to find out when that public hearing is going to be. It will not be before September 9. It could potentially be the October meeting.
I just want to make sure that we get notice out to everybody, that everybody has the notice. And that way, they would have the opportunity to come back and see what Mr. Palmer might want to rework. So, all right. Motion made then by Commissioner Cook to send this item back to the Planning Commission for a date to be determined.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye.
Commissioners, this is a zoning issue, so it's a public hearing situation. So you still have to allow this for a public hearing, but what you can do is limit the public testimony to the motion that you have made.
Okay, then thank you. All right. So a motion has been made and has been seconded. At this time, is there any public comment, anybody wanting to address?
You'd have to amend your motion, I think.
The motion was to delay.
Right.
There was a second. Now you can open it up for the public hearing.
So do you need a motion to open up for public hearing?
No, I think you just say
There's just
public
comment
hearing.
now.
Anybody?
But-
Comment.
But
It's public comment.
public comment.
Yeah.
But
That's just-
you, as opposed to everyone up there railing against option A, which isn't on the table, the comments can be restricted to the motion that you made.
Everybody
If that
clear?
makes sense.
All right. Anybody want to speak on the motion?
Oh, careful there.
My only concern on the timing is that if there is to be a traffic study done, that it be done while school is in session, because that represents 9 months of the year. If they were to do one today, which represents 25% of the year, the results would be far different. So that's what I would request, that the traffic study not be conducted until school is in session.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna get your name.
Ma'am, can you state your name just for the clerk?
Marcia Armfield.
Thank-
And school starts in just a few weeks, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue.
Are there any other persons wanting to speak on the motion? All right. Not seeing any. So, motion has been made, second by Commissioner Rippon.
Did you second?
No,
Yep.
Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
All in
gave you the
favor?
credit.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? And it passes 3-0 to be sent back to the Planning Commission for a date to be determined. I want to thank all of you for being here, too. We do receive all of your emails. We do read all of them, and we do take them very seriously. So please do continue to make sure that you communicate with us as the commissioners. But we want to make sure that we take all the evidence and hear it and judge it fairly and not really prejudge the evidence. But we do appreciate all of you contacting us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give everybody a moment to kind of clear out just a little bit before we get to our next item.
It's time to stand anyway.
Yep.
I can't believe they don't want to stay.
Angela's not here today, so I guess I'm the stand-up, so.
Thank you.
Wow, look at all the Shawnee County
It's not my
employees
car.
for ignoring the
Mine
stand.
doesn't sound like that.
I know.
Oh, the health department finally stands up.
Extinguish the torches and take your pitchfork for you.
Okay. Ms. Beck, you ready for us?
Go for it.
All right. Let's get back to business. Ms. Beck, what's our next item?
Item C, Public Works number 1, consider a request to schedule a public meeting concerning the use of the design-build alternate project delivery process for an assessment of and updates to the Sherwood wastewater treatment plant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. Here a number of years ago, we took out a loan with KDHE in the amount of $7 million. We had 4 projects identified as part of that $7 million loan. Number 1 was a teacup replacement at the treatment plant. It has been completed. Number 2 was a collection system project, which has been completed. Number 3 was a pump station project. It was actually 2A and 2B, where we had 4 what I called simple pump stations. They were relatively easy to replace, and then 2 difficult pump stations. That project is probably 40 to 50% complete. The 4 easy pump stations are the mechanics, the pumps, the control systems are in place. 2 of the 4 pumps are operational. I think the only thing holding up the final 2 simple pumps, simple locations, are programming. And so as far as the 2 difficult pump stations, 53 and 54, we haven't started on those yet, but they will be started very soon. So I believe it's a time where we have a pretty good feel for how much money we're going to have left over. And so I'm here before you asking to start the process of generating a project to assess and upgrade the treatment plant out at the Sherwood Treatment Complex. And I would like to use an alternate project delivery system. Rather than the usual design bid bill method, I would like to do a design build method. And according to state statute, in order to do that, to start the process off, we have to have a public meeting to discuss the merits of this alternate project delivery system with the public. I'm proposing a date of August 8th, 2024. That'll give me ample time to get the notice in the Metro News and to schedule that public meeting. Now, from as far as the commission goes, if you believe at this point in time that the design build process is an absolute no, then all you would, I guess, have to do would be to deny my request for a public hearing. But if you think my request has merit, I'm asking that we move forward with the public meeting, I should say, on August 8th. And after that hearing on August 8th, then I will ask you for approval to move forward with a request for qualifications to select, ultimately to select a design build team. We will follow all state statutes on the selection of the design build team. I feel like this project is suited for design build. You're taking an existing plant, you're replacing equipment, you're replacing, maybe adding equipment. We need to improve the plant. The effluent has some issues that we need to address. These are not issues that go back to the beginning when the plant was built. As time goes on, KDHE tightens their requirements, and so now it's time to upgrade that plant and bring it into the latest requirements. And so, that's where I'm at. Let's have a public meeting to start this process off, and I look forward to your questions or comments.
Questions for Mr. Niehaus?
What do you hope to gain out of a public meeting? I mean, do people know?
It's required by law.
That's required by law. It's good enough for me.
So, but you believe that the design build, as opposed to a design bid build, would be a better course for this plan?
Yes, I do, because if we can design a project, but once you get into the plant, it's like our project over at the courthouse. Once we got into that project, we discovered a lot of things. Things weren't quite as we thought or they seemed. I think this treatment plant is a similar thing. So it's best to have a combined design and construction team together that work together so that not only are you designing the replacement components or adding new components, you're doing that under the umbrella of what is constructible. So I think this project is ideally suited to that type of delivery method.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Well, then, at this time, is there a position of the commission regarding Kurt's request?
So I'll just say, typically, I'm not a big fan of design build, but I think in this case, it probably makes sense. So I would, what do we do? I would make a motion that we schedule a public meeting.
Is that all we're doing at this point? Just
Right.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Approve his request.
So, Ms. Beck, do you need a date set now?
I had proposed in my memo
August
August 8th, but
As long
any,
as long as it's, as your calendar
Yep.
is free, so to
All right.
approve the request.
That's good.
So, Commissioner Mays has made a motion to approve the request and to schedule a public hearing on August the 8th. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item D, Department of Corrections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-226-2024, a 3-year agreement with Thompson Reuters to provide inmate law library services at a cost of $1,751.48 for year 1 and 5% increases for years 2 and 3 to be paid from the Inmate Benefit Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. We
are coming to the close of our last 3-year agreement for this purpose. What this does is allow Westlaw Legal Research Services to be made available on the inmate tablets, so we have less use of manpower moving inmates back and forth from a physical law library. And we found this to be a really efficient way to make the service available without it being an additional load on the staff. So I propose we continue this process for another 3-year period. And again, the Inmate Benefit Fund is paying for this service. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D2, request approval to negotiate a final contract with Smart Communications for telecommunications services within the adult and juvenile detention centers.
Tenth Department of Corrections. This is the end of a multi-month period where we put out an RFP. We've had 6 companies that have bid for the work. There's been a lot of advancement in technology in this field, and so we are thinking that the company we want to negotiate a final contract with is above the rest or ahead of the rest of the field. They're smaller, they're much more efficient, and they're showing all the organizations we checked on have nothing but praise for the way they've been performing. So we want to proceed with negotiating a final contract with them.
Have there been some recent changes with communications, and I understand there might be some recent terminations regarding inmate communications and restrictions?
Yes.
Is that,
I think it's scheduled for July 18th. Federal Communications Commission is slated to hold a hearing, and they're expected to approve a 400-plus page order that's going to radically impact the provision of telephone services or telecommunication services for inmates. There's going to be a lot of change in the way fees are aligned and the way per minute costs are aligned, both for phone use and for video visitation. They're also going to be banning commissions to be paid to sites, which will have an impact on what benefit we get from the contract. I've already had some communication with the organization we want to negotiate with to make sure that this wasn't going to be a problem for them and for them to be able to operate. And I've been assured that it's not going to. So I'm confident that we can still get everything we need out of this agreement, although we may have some secondary benefits that we lose just because of that order.
okay. All right. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D3, request approval to resubmit the fiscal year 2025 adult services budget for community corrections to include the increased amount of $301,127.65.
Good morning, Commissioners. Steve Willis, Department of Corrections, with Community Corrections. This past legislative session, the state budget had a $5 million increase for community corrections services, and Shawnee County is receiving the benefit of that, of $301,000 from state grant funds to increase our adult budget. As part of that, $117,213 goes directly to personnel, and $183,914 goes towards our operations. In order for us to submit this new budget, we have to have approval through our advisory board and through the county commission. This budget has been approved with the advisory board. It will help us increase staff, which I'll speak on shortly, but it also allows us to introduce new cognitive behavioral programs to the probationers we're supervising. It allows us to contract with new partners within the community, which I will also speak to here shortly. The biggest thing that I'm most excited about within the cognitive programming piece of it is we get to introduce trauma-informed care understanding to our staff and to the probationers that we are interacting with. We have new workbooks that we'll be working on with the probationers to hopefully identify behavior change and increase success rates within our program. So with that, I'd ask that you consider approving the increase of $301,000 into our current adult budget so that we may submit that to the Kansas Department of Corrections.
Questions?
No. I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D4, consider authorization and execution of contract C227-2024, a memorandum of understanding between Shawnee County Community Corrections and the Mirror, Inc. for services during state fiscal year 2025. Cost of $65,630 to be paid out of the state grant funds. No county dollars will be used.
Good morning, Steve Willis, Department of Corrections. With those new funds, we have an opportunity to partner with Mirror, Inc. Nick Casarona, the director, is here with us. This position that we have partnered together is also, it's a very unique position. I believe there's one similar position like this across the state, and that's in Douglas County. Our goal is to house a Mirror employee who is certified in drug and alcohol assessments and all those needed things for us to understand what is happening with the probationers that we're working with, to house them in the jail, which so this is really a partnership with our jail, with Community Corrections, and with Mirror. But anyone who is on Community Corrections supervision and ends up in our Shawnee County Jail will be immediately assigned to this Mirror employee, who then can assess for needs within the community, provide immediate referrals to other services that could be of benefit, and provide a report to our office and the court so that when the next hearing occurs, we may be able to get this person out of jail and into services sooner. Shawnee County is a Stepping Up Initiative county, so this plays into a huge role for that as well. Many of the probationers that we have dual diagnosis with drug and alcohol services and mental health. So this position can help us identify those persons that are in jail who have some dual diagnosis and help them get services and get them out of jail, which is what the Stepping Up Initiative really is all about too. So because we were able to receive those new funds from the state of Kansas, this allows us to field this position through a contract using no county dollars and paying for that with our grant funds.
Questions?
So we're executing a memorandum of understanding, but there'll also be a contract?
I apologize. It was just the MOU.
Okay. All right. That's it.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D5, consider approval of the creation of an additional intensive supervision officer position within Community Corrections. This position will be compensated at an hourly rate of $22.38, resulting in an annual salary and benefits package totaling $66,041.79.
Good morning, Steve Willis, Department of Corrections. With those additional funds, a portion of it had to go towards personnel, which was necessary in Shawnee County as our caseloads were high. Intensive supervision should be, an average caseload should be around 30 to 35. Ours were sitting around 45. So this additional position that we're allowed to create based on 100% state grant funds will allow us to reduce our officer caseloads and help us impact some of that behavior change that we're looking for. So with that, I stand for any questions.
So last week, Director Cole came to me and asked me about this item and asked if I had any concerns, and I told him that I understood the caseload was high in Shawnee County and there was a need, and that this is grant funded, so it's not coming out of the taxpayers of Shawnee County directly. It's still tax dollars. But a concern that I do want to make sure I've expressed is, if there is no money next year for this position, we are always going to have to look at, is this a position that is going to be picked up by the taxpayers of Shawnee County, or is it going to be eliminated? And so I think those are things that we've always looking at. This is a discussion we're having with the district attorney's office during COVID, when we added additional staff for his office, and do those positions become permanent, or at some point do they become eliminated? And so I think it's great for now, and I think as long as we have the state funding and we have the wherewithal within the county to be able to do it, but at some point, if there's not state funding and there's not ability by the county, it's a position we would have to look at. So,
Commissioner, may I answer
Yep.
some of that?
Yep.
The one thing I'll speak to on your comment, the state grant funds that we receive are statutorily required through the state of Kansas and Community Corrections Grant Act. These funds were put into the state budget as a whole, and as similar to the rest of the grants that we receive from the state, that money was set aside specifically for community corrections and to continue on. If there was a cut, it would be required through the whole legislative process. Those grant monies cannot be referred to any other state grant issues or state funds.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item E, County Councilor number 1, request for approval of Resolution 2024-50, which is notification of intent to exceed revenue neutral rate and set the revenue neutral rate, public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Eckert, County Council's Office. The resolution in front of you does several things. The first thing that it does is it sets the cap, the high end of our proposed mill levies for the 3 organizations that you are responsible for. Like I said, this is the cap. Going forward, you cannot go over this. However, you are free to go under it as much as you desire. So that's what the purpose of the first part of this resolution does. So I want to be clear to everyone listening that it sets the cap. It does not lock you into those 3 numbers, but it does lock in the high end. We've also taken the opportunity, we've had 2 years now of R&R. So after this last August, my office, particularly Jonathan and Ashley, sat down and we watched the R&R hearings of several other cities and counties. And it was pretty instructive about how other entities do things. So we have 3 recommendations to make our R&R hearing flow a little bit better. First of all, we want to set the hearing at 9 in the morning on September 5th, regularly scheduled day. The second thing that this does is that we are introducing a 4-minute time limit for the first time. And we came up with that time by, again, our study of other municipalities. The most popular time was 4. We did see a couple that had 5, but there were a couple that had 3. City of Topeka does 4, so it seemed that a 4-minute time limit would be in sync. And the reason that we're proposing a time limit, because Shawnee County has never had a time limit in any way, shape, or form, is just the sheer number of people that were interested in this topic who wanted to testify. We wanted to make sure that everybody has a chance and that someone doesn't sit in the chair for 2 hours and then leaves exhausted with never having a chance, because the time at the podium were dominated by our more vocal citizens. So the time limit is more about ensuring that everybody gets a fair chance at this and it doesn't become a marathon endurance contest for our citizens. And then the third thing that we recommend is suspending Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules is very strict. It has strict burdens upon everybody, not only the governing body, but the people in the audience as well. And it seems that a hearing like this needs to be more free-flowing, and we shouldn't be putting constraints on ourselves particularly in something where a topic has as much interest as this one has had in the past. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to assist you if I can.
Any questions for the county councilor?
No.
I do have, what was that date again? That you were,
September the 5th.
September 5th.
5th?
So I do note that there are three Shawnee County Sewer District 2, and Shawnee County Sewer District 6. Why are Sewer District 2 and 6 on this resolution?
Because you set their mill levy, and they are also subject to R&R.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure that we had that answered. I do have a question on number 1, and this might be a question for our Audit Finance Director. If the proposed mill levy rate is 48.980. Where did this number come from?
That number, sorry, Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. Sorry.
Oh, my.
That number comes from, I'm trying to get to the mouse here.
Mr. Eckert did it a couple weeks ago, it's okay.
Yeah.
I now believe someone else has done it.
Yes, it's a loud drawer. That number comes from where we left off on the departmental requests for the 2025 budget. So using that information of all of the requests of both the department and all of our allocation partners in the community, and factoring in the new valuations that currently exist on the properties, that brings us to a mill levy of the 48.98.
I know there's been a lot of discussion between myself and you, and as well as just everybody in public. We're looking at, in this pink column, the 2025 budget request. This is what the department heads have submitted to the county commission, and the elected officials have submitted to the county commission.
Correct.
And so if we were to want to, as a commission, to say we will not exceed what our current mill levy is that we set last year, what would that number be?
That number is $741,000.
Okay. So, but what would the mill levy be?
The mill, that would put us at the exact same mill levy that we had last year.
Okay, so 48.653.
Correct.
So if we wanted to say, as the county commission, we are making a commitment today that we are not going to raise the mill levy, we would want to make that known then today.
Correct. If your goal today is to list on our notification that is required to go to Ms. Beck as our county clerk, that would be then the requirement you would need to cut from.
And then we would need to, at a later time, reduce the budget requests by at least $741,000.
Yes, we would have to find a home for those cuts, yeah.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Mays.
I would ask, could you punch in if we took out 750?
I can. Now that the drawer is open, oh, hang
Ooh,
on.
wrong line.
I did it in the wrong spot though. I was all excited about not having to make a loud noise again.
Commissioner Mays, OCD is a real thing.
There, now I can. That would bring us to 48.649.
I would prefer that we go that route, just to say we're lowering the mill levy.
Ms. Beck?
Could I say something?
And I like round numbers.
This is, what we're doing here is just notification.
Right.
Prior to R&R, when we talked about budgets, when we did our publication, they would actually, the Audit Finance Department would actually take all of the budget, all of the figures. They didn't ever, they would just, 100% of what everybody asked for, all the departments, and that's what they would publish. And then that was, the levy would be, it could be 6, 7, 8 mills above what the current year levy was. Never had, that's why, to me, the R&R is a little bit, it's like we never gave anybody the time to discuss it, but they've always had this. The budget process that is in place in the state of Kansas and has been forever has always given people, opportunity. However, this is just an estimate. This is just saying you're not going to go above this, but we've always done this. This is not something new. It used to be, we had people that would 10 years ago, would call the audit finance or call the commissioners and go, you got your levy set at, because I saw it in the paper, it said, 10 mils above or 5 mils above what you're gonna do. That's just every request they had, and that's how they've always done it, and that's what she's doing now, and what Rich is proposing is just strictly saying, you're not gonna go above this, but this is what the requests are. So it kind of lets the public know that you're not just making these numbers up. This is actually what the DA needs and my office needs and Kurt's office needs and stuff. So it gives you a basis for that.
I think we all fully understand that. But what we saw last year is we sent out a number that was unrealistic. It was higher than what any of us had intended to do to try and give us some extra wiggle room. And I think this year we're setting a goal more than that.
Last year's R&R was actually the current year levy. It was actually the levy that was for that.
All right, so just to make sure that I'm clear, Ms. Beck, your office will send out the notice of the revenue neutral rate. The revenue neutral rate, as I understand it, Ms. Sauer, is what?
The revenue neutral rate is the amount of money that would come into Shawnee.
No, what is the actual?
The number?
The number.
The number is 46 point, I don't have that right in front of me right now. Cindy, I know your office already provided that. In order to hit the revenue neutral rate, it would be 46 point, I want to say 8 something.
We have
46.561.
Okay. So if the county commission was to say, we are not going to exceed the revenue neutral rate, which means that we would not collect more monies than we had the year before. That is a commitment to cutting $5,400,000 from the proposed budget.
From the proposals, or from the requests that have been made, not from a proposed, but from the requests that have been made thus far.
And
more than that,
Yeah,
it's like $7 million.
It's hang on. To hit the revenue neutral, oh gosh, sorry, it would be
4 million.
4.7 based on what our updated revenues are that are not levy revenues.
All right.
That's where the difference is.
All
So
right.
it would be a very sizable cut to our budget in order to hit the revenue neutral rate, which is why most counties and governmental entities, for an abundance of caution, always send out the notice to allow us to exceed the revenue neutral rate, which then allows us during the budget time to look at additional changes to the requests that have been made and come to that number. But we are required to notify, should we want to go above that revenue neutral rate, you have to send out this notification and we have to send it to the county clerk prior to July 20th.
But I
Right.
think the action that Commissioner Mays is really wanting to make sure the public knows is that there is a self-imposed cap by the county commission that the mill levy will not be more than what it currently is, and in
Correct.
fact, will be decreasing the mill levy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you would be doing is guaranteeing that you are gonna try and find that $750,000 of cuts in our budget so that the estimated mill levy maximum, as we would be notifying people, would be 48.649.
All right. So, Commissioner Rippon, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna see if I can muddle through this, Mr. Eckert and Ms. Beck, make sure that I get all the words in the right order.
I would suggest multiple motions.
Okay, all right. So,
Motion to amend the resolution, proposed mill levy for Shawnee County 2.
all right, so let's start with that. I am going to make a motion to amend the resolution that the Shawnee County, Kansas proposed mill levy rate is 48.649. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Show the motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays, passes 3-0.
Real quick.
Yes.
Is there a requirement by the state of Kansas that we do anything special with the passing of this resolution? We need to do roll call votes or anything like that? I know there's
Not for this
a
one.
lot of snares in that legislation.
Not for this one.
Okay.
All right. Then the second motion would be to then adopt the resolution
As amended.
as amended, outlining the mill levy for Shawnee County, Kansas, Shawnee County Sewer District Number 2, Shawnee County Sewer District Number 6, and also setting the parameters of the meeting being held on September the 5th at 9 a.m. at the Shawnee County Commission Office, 707 Southeast Quincy, Topeka, Kansas, 66603, that there would be provided a 4-minute time limit for each interested taxpayer to present oral testimony at public hearing, and that we would be temporarily suspending the Robert Rules of Order during the public hearing. That is a motion made by Commissioner Cook. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. So, all right. September the 5th, make sure you bring your lunch. We may be here a while.
Yep.
Ms. Beck?
Item F, Health Department. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 229-2024, Amendment 2 to the agreement with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Division of Healthcare Finance to provide outreach, prevention, and early intervention services through the Shawnee County Health Department for grant funding in the amount of $437,734 with dollar-for-dollar matching funds with the Early Childhood Block Grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. Missy Middendorf, Family Health Division Manager, Health Department. Before you today is our agreement with KDHE, Division of Health Finance, to provide the home visitation services to our community. This is an amendment 2 of a contract that was written in 2022, and we had the option for 3 optional 1-year renewals, so this is year 2 of that. These services are provided by our Nurse Family Partnership, evidence-based program through the Health Department, and then also our the Healthy Families. It's an evidence-based program through Kansas Children's Service League. So therefore, after this gets approval, I would be bringing a contract with Kansas Children's Service League. Like the county clerk said, the matching funds are from our early childhood block grant, so no county dollars. And then just to point out some highlights of our Nurse Family Partnership for the previous year of services, they had 100% of the total children served were identified to have a medical home, which that's one of our priorities we want them to be able to have. And then 100% of the children were enrolled in a health insurance program, and 100% of these children served received a developmental screening. And then 92% of the children served were up to date with their Can Be Healthies or Well Child, and then 92% of the children served were up to date with immunizations.
Great.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you very much, and thank everybody for the work that they're doing with kids in Shawnee County. So,
Thank you.
our next item.
Item G, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider request to fill the vacant recreation programmer position with a candidate of exceptional experience at a cost of $65,416 annually, including benefits.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. Yes, we'd like to offer this position to a candidate that we've known for quite a while. This person has worked as an intermittent for us for many years, and we think that she'll do a fabulous job, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item 5, public comment.
Are there any members of the public wishing to add comment today? Seeing none. Our next item.
Item 6, administrative communications.
Is there any members of the county staff that wishes to address the commission today?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Commissioner. I just wanted to do a quick reminder for voters throughout the county of their options and the timeframes that are coming up soon for the election. I've got just a real quick presentation here. Tuesday, July the 16th is the last day to register to vote. Advanced ballots will be mailed out next week on July the 17th. In-person early voting starts Monday, July 22nd. Last day to request a mail ballot is July the 30th, and then primary election day is actually August the 6th. Again, I encourage people to make a plan to vote. Remember, you have 3 different ways you can choose to vote, either early, in person, at the office, or election day. Don't forget, if you request a mail ballot, which you can still do, you can drop it at the post office, you can drop it at our office, or you can deliver it at any polling place on election day. Our hours are 8 to 7 at the office. We've got the times here on this slide. Again, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. the 22nd through the 26th, and then again July 29th through August 2nd, and then we still have that noon on Monday before Election Day. If you have questions, please call us at the office, 251-5900. Encourage people to make your voice heard on August the 6th or sooner.
So let's leave this slide up for just a moment. As I understand it, we're always needing more election help and more election workers, poll workers. Is that accurate?
We actually think we're getting close to enough for the primary. My bigger concern, though, and I would like to have people sign up and let us know if you're interested, but always looking for people of all parties to help, especially for the presidential general election coming up in November.
Okay. And if people have an interest in working as a poll worker, this is the number they would call.
Correct, 251-5900. Happy to have people. We really need people of all parties, unaffiliated, libertarians, Republicans and Democrats, and there's a couple of new parties. I don't think we have 10 people in Shawnee County that are affiliated with those new parties. But again, people of all parties are certainly welcome and appreciated. So.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you. Do we have any other administrative communications this morning?
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Rucker, Department of Corrections. I'm just here to quickly announce that the Juvenile Detention Center is in partnership with the Topeka Public Library. The library received a grant titled "If You See It, They Will Read It," and they identified the Juvenile Detention Center as a hidden community of young readers that deserve and need a high-quality library. So we received $31,500 towards upgrading our current library. We're going to use $21,500 for new books that are age appropriate for our youth, and $10,000 will be towards audio books for kids with disabilities, and then some launchers for pre-educational programs and games that are age appropriate for the juveniles as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great news. Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Mays?
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Rippon?
Nothing here.
I might just note that, again, it's going to be warm and we're getting into the warmer part of the summer. If you have elderly neighbors or if there's people that you're concerned about, check on them. And also make sure that if you're outside and you're doing yard work and you start to get a little hot or overheated, take a break. So just be safe. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 7, executive session.
There is not a need for an executive session today, so we are adjourned.